All right, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting of the Budget Committee to order. Before we rise for the pledge, Patrick, since our secretary isn't here, could you take minutes for tonight's meeting?
I can certainly make a valiant attempt at it.
All right. All right, then let's rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you may be seated. So first, can I have a motion to open up public comment?
So,
Second.
All in favor say aye.
aye.
Chair votes in the affirmative. Members of the public. All right, seeing no one for public comment, can I have a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes in the affirmative. So the last month's minutes, did you all have a chance to review them?
Yep.
Any changes? So Patrick, if you'd like to make a note, I'll let Nicole know. Just in a small change, just with I like to include the absent members as well. She has members that are present, but also just listening to members that are absent. That's just keeping with how we've usually done the minutes.
Last month, just to clarify, the absent member or members were Kate Burbidge, correct?
Myself.
And Ryan.
Right, okay.
Yes. So can I have a motion to amend the minutes?
So moved.
To add what I just said.
Add absent members.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, and then can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes in the affirmative. All right, so now we're moving on to our meeting discussion with Library Director Erin. And so is Jan's not here, is she? All right, so Erin, please come up. I know you, just so that the folks at home can hear.
Sure.
I'll put this closer to you.
I'm just gonna move it a little bit so I don't hit it.
Would you like to just recap in the email, since I'm the library liaison, and after the budget committee decided this way in June, I was the one who invited then Chair Liz and Director Aaron. This week, Aaron, thank you, checked in just to make sure we were still on and had asked about priorities for this meeting, and I had provided 3 topics. Would you like to maybe just read those off to start, and then other budget committee members or others?
Sure, yeah, we'll start with those 3. So first, and we appreciate your insight to the library's fiscal posture, especially the year-to-year budget changes. That was number 1. Number 2, are there significant financial events or changes to be expected for the upcoming fiscal year and upcoming budget season? And other one item new or non-routine budget items. And then we'd appreciate your comments on budget line items where the amount spent is substantially larger or smaller than budgeted, especially on a multi-year basis, and what is the driving factor for these variances. So those are the three topics that Patrick had proposed. Anything from the rest of any additional questions?
It's a good start.
And just to make sure, did you have a chance to review that email since Monday and just?
Yes, so
Okay,
I did.
perfect.
I'm going to do my best to address it. Certainly, if there's any questions or anything that you guys are looking for, I can certainly get that to you.
Thank you.
I would just sort of putting forward, the trustees have asked that they do the budget this year. So I cannot anticipate or kind of plan for anything necessarily going forward. That's going to be a board decision. I'll certainly put in my input or thoughts if they ask, but in the end, it's the board's decision. But I can try to answer as much of these questions as possible related to last year's budget, if that's helpful.
Sure.
So the first question regarding year-to-year budget changes. So for fiscal 25, our budget changes were mostly around inflation. Obviously, that's a big problem, I think, for every department. All of our processing, barcodes, like barcodes and labels and things like that, have gone up in the past years, and as well as our databases. And so we try to work with our vendors on that. We take a look at the usage of that database and if it's worth it to keep in the collection, and things like that. So we do review those things annually as we start to do our collection development, which is usually around this time. I would say that there is also an expectation of service that we do provide to our community. That those services include obviously everything that we're doing, programs, books, materials, and things like that. So as those expectations, as well as the community, we all know that Londonderry has a lot of building going on. As the community grows, we think those expectations will grow, and so we'll have to accommodate for that. And we try to do that a little bit with fiscal '25, but obviously as the years go on, that'll be more. And then I don't think staffing changes really affected any of this. We didn't really, in fiscal '25, add any new staff members. The addition was for fiscal '26, and that was that part-time children's librarian. So I don't think staffing really played a role in the changes of fiscal '25. And as far as you had mentioned benefits in your question, this, I'm assuming you're referring to medical benefits, and unfortunately, we don't have a lot of control over those costs. We fall under the town when it comes to the medical benefits, so that's something that we obviously get information from the town for. So, did that answer the question, or does
That
anybody
wouldn't
have?
hit your budget anyway, right?
I'm sorry?
The medical benefits don't hit your budget
It
anyway.
is in our budget,
It
yes.
is?
Are there any other benefits?
Related to medical?
No,
Oh,
just other benefits.
so we do, I mean, we get normal vacation like PTO and things like that. Both full-time and part-time staff get the PTO currently, and the full-time staff is the only ones that get the medical benefits. And all that's outlined in our personnel policy.
How did you perform the budget overall, Les?
We actually did not go over. We actually were able to give money back. I think it was about $30,000 we returned back to the town.
Great.
Part of that was not filling a position that was open. A lot of that came from that. So, and admittingly and obviously, we went over in some line items, and I can explain those if necessary.
Yeah, and what are you projecting for the remainder of fiscal year '25?
Well,
Or 26?
We're in
We're in
26.
'26. Like that, yeah.
so for the rest of '26.
Yeah, so I just as of now.
Oh, as of costing, and
Yeah.
so I think we'll be fine. We have 2 positions that we just posted that we are hoping to fill soon. So I do think because we didn't post and fill them exactly at July 1, we will have a little bit extra leeway there. Certainly not much, but I think we should be fine. We've anticipated some costs already. And we are gonna be a lot more stricter on our material spending, and materials, I mean, adding to the collection as far as books, collections of that nature, to make sure that we don't go over in that book line. I know that's been a big issue in the past, and it's something that I'm really going to try to tackle this year. Try to get more on that. Especially now that we're part of the consortium, we have a little bit more, we can be a little more strict on our spending.
So just to make sure I understand, please, when you say consortium, you mean G-Milks?
Yes.
And so because of G-Milks providing materials and books, that means that here, the library itself will need to spend less? There's sort of an
Not
offset?
necessarily spend less.
Okay.
We still have to provide materials to our patrons and our library also. And because we're part of a consortium, there is an expectation that we continue with our collections appropriately. So we will continue to add to our collections. And the kind of the, I don't know, you wouldn't say deal, but with the consortium, a lot of times when you buy a new item, for example, a new book, you don't usually circulate that for at least 6 months because you buy it for your patrons and you want your patrons to have access to it first. So you give that 6 months. Once that is passed, and sometimes it's a little bit longer depending on the popular book or whatever have you. Once that time frame has passed, you can then, in a sense, release it so it goes, other people in the consortium can request it.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah. Did you want me to go on to the second question?
Sure.
Okay, I didn't know. So you talked about some financial events that are expected, staffing changes and things like that. So I don't anticipate anything in FY '27. However, I would have to discuss that with the board first before I make any kind of assumptions. I would love to, you talk about possibly wanting to obtain more staff. Of course, I would love to obtain more staff. I think everybody would. But certainly that would be up to the board, and that would be a decision that they would make. And that ties into that, need of the expectations of the community and making sure that we're filling those needs. I do have some goals that I'd like to work on for the future, but there are things that I would have to discuss with the board first, and see what that would look like. But, so I just don't want to make any assumptions
Would
right
you
now.
want to, if these are goals they're gonna bring before the trustees and, they'll be reviewing, have you already brought these to them before?
I have not brought them, so this is going to be part of my review coming next month.
So I feel like that'd be inappropriate to ask.
Yeah, and they may not want me to do those goals, so, yeah.
Understood, yeah, and
Yeah.
certainly the question was more about, are there just larger things that you see for this fiscal year that maybe you haven't had to deal with in the last couple of fiscal years? And one of the examples was anything about the building, I mean, does
So,
anything...
so I can answer to the fact that our water heater stopped working. So we did not have hot water for almost a week. We
remember
were
that,
able
yeah.
we did get a quote, and I was able to get the co-chair because the chair is on vacation, and because it's an emergency kind of situation, the co-chair did approve that spending, and we have ordered it, and it should be hopefully installed tomorrow. So that's something I didn't know wasn't going to happen, but luckily it's a fix that we can accommodate right now.
Awesome.
Sorry, fix or replacement?
Replacement, excuse me, yes.
Out of curiosity, how much was it?
It's about a little over $3,000.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's not as bad as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And I think by also looking at, I know we're a bottom line budget, because we didn't fill those positions right away, I feel comfortable going forward saying that shouldn't affect our budget too badly, so. Oops.
Oh, there's Jan. Hi, Jan.
No word.
All right, thank you. Out of curiosity, if I may ask,
Of course.
have you in the past, or do you expect to have any sort of line item to prepare for other emergencies, like the hot water, the boiler just failing?
Not to my knowledge, that's certainly something that I can bring to the board as a suggestion, but we don't have one currently.
Gotcha, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have it in front of me. Isn't there a maintenance and repairs one or no?
There is,
Okay.
yeah. But it's general, it's not emergency
Okay.
separated, but certainly that's something that I can bring to the board. Did you want me to go on to the third question? I'm just going off the questions, but if there are more questions, I'm happy to answer. Okay. So you had mentioned about the line items that were overspent
Or under.
or underspent. So I mostly focused it on the over just because I just wanted to address those. And I looked at the, obviously, fiscal '25. So management services, we did go over in that line. And that line, just for reference, does include its performers, programming, supplies, and things like that. Anything related to programming. So for example, we have two databases, I guess you can call them. One is called Library Aware and the other one's called Assabet. Library Aware is a promotional website. It allows us to make flyers, have an email list, so we can send blast emails to our patrons. Assabet is a database that we use to book the meeting room, as well as book the meeting room not only for our programs, but also for patrons who want to use it. So that's a service that we use for our calendar online, so people can see when the room is available, what programs are coming up, and what they can register for. So those are some subscriptions. We also pay for a movie license out of that line, which is a movie, you have to have approval to play movies to the public, and so we use that obviously for programming. There was some unusual things in this line this past year that we don't, I would say one-time usage. One, we did pay for a shredding service that was based on an update to our records retentions policy, or a new policy rather, should I say. And so we used that shredding service to safely remove all those documents that were appropriate.
What
If
were
I may
those
ask-
documents?
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry?
What were those documents?
A lot of them were just past documents that the previous director had saved, and we followed the RSA as far as retention, so it's all from the RSA that we just kind of copied and pasted in a normal look. for all any documents. So there were certain things that we only had to, like patron records and things like that, you only have to hold on to for a certain number of years. But we had passed way back, and actually Megan could probably speak to how far back, because she's been there the longest, but long time, and it was taking up a lot of space, a lot of paper. So
Yeah.
we were able to move those along with that updated retention policy.
Does this retention policy mean that from now on, each year, you'll effectively need to sort of shred and get rid of the oldest?
We will, but not to that extent.
Okay.
So I feel like that's something we can manage in-house.
Got it.
Yeah. That's why it was hopefully a one-time thing. Unless there's a change in RSAs, which I don't see for that. And then some of those, we did get a veterans parking sign, which I know no, it wasn't a big expense, but again, that was just a one-time thing. And then I think part of the overage for the management services line is some of our databases have gone up in price. We also had, I'm trying to think, most of the overages was due to programming. We did a lot more programming this past year. We had hired a full-time librarian halfway through the year before, and so this past year she was able to really amp up the programming, which has been well received by our patrons. The other line that I can mention is printing services. We went over in that as well. This is related to just printing more. Specifically, not to offend the board, but the board packets have become quite large. We've had 68 pages, 124 pages, 82 pages of board packets. Those all have to be printed for the board and also have to be available for the public. So I'm hoping going forward we can kind of minimize that by doing a QR code that patrons can scan, and hopefully it'll lessen that printing issue as well.
Out of curiosity, are there either legal requirements that you have to provide hard copies, or what kind of feedback have you gotten from board or the public about printed versus digital?
So the board likes, from what I'm understanding with the board, is that they like the paper copy for themselves, and then we also send them a digital copy. But for the patrons, in the past, there was a sense that they wanted the paper copies. However, I think at one meeting, we did do a QR code, and that seemed to be received well. So it's something that the board, they have not voted on it yet, but they can certainly decide to do that.
Okay.
Yep. Dues and subscriptions also went over, and this was really mostly related to GMilks. This past year, and I'm talking FY25, included their automation and migration. So that was all setting up for GMilks. And so we did anticipate, we didn't get an exact number from GMilks because it's very hard to get an exact number for the migration, but we had a guesstimate. So we did add to that line originally to hopefully accommodate that. But unfortunately, we still went over about $7,400. So that was, most of that line was used for GMilks, and then we did add a limited time museum pass, which basically means a 1-year use, and that's just to add variety to our museum passes. And then we had to also add a summer New England Aquarium pass, because in past years, the New England Aquarium pass did not get offered over the summer. They felt it was a loss to them because of how busy they are, obviously, with the summer. But now they're offering a summer-specific pass, so you have to pay for that on top of your regular annual pass. So there were some additions there as well. And then the postage line also went over. That was due to a postcard campaign that we did when we joined GMilks. So I would say about 96% of that was that campaign. So that was a one-time thing. Obviously, we're not doing that this year or the years coming. So I don't anticipate having issues in that line going forward.
What was that campaign focused on?
So we sent postcards to our residents and those who had library cards already, and invited them to come in and get new library cards, which they needed to do with the new consortium. And it was a great way to also get people who hasn't used their cards. I think, did you have because Megan handled that campaign. I think we also branched out a little bit, those who had recently expired cards. So we were inviting our patrons to come back.
Yeah, so we had held up, like we started giving out the new cards in January, and then we did the campaign over the summer, just to kind of give a good 6 months of just getting the people coming in. And it only went to one postcard per household, so multiple card holders were in the household, they only got the one postcard. So it was just to kind of come in and get the new library card with the new number.
Yeah, so I don't anticipate doing that again. Hopefully not. And then for our maintenance and repairs, we also went over in that. That was related to, partially, we did sign up for a pest control company in August of 2024. They come monthly to check traps, and their total for FY 24, for FY 25, excuse me, was about $1,400. So I think the overage was related to that, which was necessary. So that was almost half that, and then the others were unanticipated. With the maintenance, it's obviously, it could be HVAC, it could be leaks and things like that. So a variety of those things as well.
When you said the pest control company was necessary, I thought I should not ask why she said
I was gonna
Nice. Nice. We have a lot of, we're very careful about locking up food, like in bins and making sure, but there's still, I mean, it's a warm place in the winter.
Yeah, and lots of
And we
paper to
would see,
chew.
like, I'd be sitting in my office and one would go by and I'd be like, we need to take care of that. So we haven't had any issues since the pest control company, so very happy to hear that. So those were the 3 questions that you had emailed me. Certainly I'm happy to entertain more, or Jan is our treasurer from the Board of Trustees. I'm sure she can help as well.
I just have one quick question for you.
course.
And by the way, thank you for the explanation. This is very helpful, especially for those like us that are in our first year. So really,
Of course.
thank you for that. If I may, you said that management services, it's not about over under, but includes a bunch of different categories of expenses, performance, programming, and supplies. And so I'm just wondering, do you expect to break those out more? Are those going to be in separate line items, do you think? Where there's going to be like supplies, there's going to be a programming line item maybe, and so on?
We should probably ask Jan.
Yeah, so that's one of the areas that I think that we really need some more specificity. It's when programs was only a small part of what the library did. I think that it was great to be able to put it in a line, that had other things. But I think programs is a real good example that we need to really be able to break that out so it's obvious what we are spending in programs, and kind of can remove those extra things. Also, G-Milks is another one. You can't look at our budget and say, oh, this is how much we're spending on G-Milks this year. And I think from a standpoint of clarity to the taxpayers, that both of those things, since programs is something that people want, it would be good for them to know how much we're actually spending on programs. I'd like to see it also include staff time for that too. But the G-Milks is another one because it's just kind of in there. It's not clear, oh, you go to this line and this is G-Milks because it's with other things, because there's a little bit here and a little bit there. So I think so that's part of it, is getting more specific lines for some of these items. Another thing is to right size the items that we have. So we have some items that routinely are underspent. So they're place that is going to when we've overspent something else, that those have money. So that we need to be more judicious about those. Yes, we do need to have a buffer, but we need to be cognizant of the fact that if we keep putting additional funds in here, that this is not something that we should be doing. We should instead right size our expectations. Likewise, though, I know one of the discussions always is about books. We didn't really go over books by that much this year, but books and periodicals and things like that. That's another line that has a mixed bag because there's digital items in there that don't really show up well. So it's not just books. There are books and there are playaways and things like that.
I'm sorry, there are what, playaways?
Playaways, they're little self-contained units.
Oh.
So if you wanted to listen to something in your car or while you're walking, you just get a playaway. You get the book and you just plug your own earphones in and away you go. They're a little more expensive than books, but they're very popular in a community like Londonderry that has a lot of commuters and a lot of folks that are out doing things outside. But we don't have any way to designate those differences.
Got it.
So if the line item is increased because technology has gone up, we can't see that. We only, it only looks, only the books line gets targeted for that.
So maybe print and digital, have it separate.
That, something like that would,
Yeah.
even just that would be great.
Yep.
So that there would be a way to kind of document that. And then maybe there would be a change in how we could at least be able to track from the outside. I know these folks do a great job of keeping track of what their collection has in it. But that we could actually be able to look at it and say, oh, well, the digital line's going up, that makes sense, because, you know, people are getting into more digital things. And I know when folks come into the Londonderry Library, if they haven't been into our library before, they're really impressed at how many of the playaways and how many of the books on CD we have, because we have a real extensive collection, and they're used a lot, because we have a lot of people that do a lot of commuting, and they do it with technology.
So then, are you saying, if I understand you correctly, that splitting, say, that kind of line item into physical and digital will help the town track, people are using more of this, people are using
Yes.
less of this?
Yes.
Are there other reasons why you or the board might be thinking, let's break out budget line items into more specific ones?
It's mostly from the standpoint of actually tracking, being able to be able to see, you know, oh, what's really happening here. And a lot of cases, it's so that we can make a better case for why we need to increase the line, because we can show what a difference there is. It's hard to do that if it's mixed in with 5 or 6 other things. It's like, okay, is it just because you want extra, like with the program line, is it just because you want extra contracts with vendors? Well, no, management services sounds like an odd thing to have programs listed under, but that was the closest thing that made sense. And when they first were doing programs, you know, it was the programs was only a small portion of it. Now the programs has grown to a much larger portion because of the way the public is differing in how they use the library, and also how the library is able to provide programs and support for the community.
Got it,
Can
thank
I
you.
add
Yep.
to that as well? So the budget line won't show necessarily statistics, it'll show the spending. We do look at those statistics to see whether we should continue to add to a collection or not, and also in our collection development, how we look at a collection. And so like if we have, let's say, 100 playaways, and you know, these 10 are not really going out as much, we may weed those and then buy more popular ones, or put that money toward a collection that's maybe more popular, or start a new collection that could be helpful, either a foreign language or whatever that is. And that's all something we look at as we interact with the community, as we see the community needs. When I attend the town department head meetings, there's a lot of discussions on, obviously, community, and so we look at that and say, how can we help that particular area or that particular section? And some of that can be, you know, I mean, in the past, at my previous job, I bought a whole bunch of ESL books for the school, and we bought them for the school. They didn't stay in the library, but it's a need that they needed, and so we assisted with that. So sometimes it looks a little different than your traditional book on the shelf.
Got it, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, what would you think about, since Jen joined us after we went through the questions, maybe also getting Jen's perspective on those 3 questions that we emailed out?
Sure, and specifically since you sit on the board, Jan, the trustees as a board for the budget for fiscal year 27, are there any one-time expenses that you're thinking on adding there? Are there any increases that you're expecting for FY27 that we'll see? Anything that's like a non-routine budget item? What should we be
I would expect there's gonna be an increase in staff.
Okay.
I would expect that's gonna be one of the areas that'll need to be adjusted. I think that this summer's been a good example, that the staffing is kind of out of adjustment, so there may be a request for more staffing. I know they've got a half a person or part-time person from the warrant article last year. But you probably already
I did not.
Okay.
I didn't felt it was right for me to
Okay.
speak on
So,
that.
so I know that there's been concern about, possibly bringing that forward either through a warrant article or not to make that a full-time position, or making sure that there's an additional full-time person, whether that
Sorry,
happens or not.
if I just may ask for the record for clarification. Right now, there are 2 advertised positions
Mhm.
open for the library.
Mhm.
Are you speaking about those, or are you saying to expect additional staffing needs? to
No,
those?
so I'm speaking about one of those, the children's librarian position. The other position the children's librarian position was the one that was in the warrant article. And the community definitely spoke that they thought we should go with the
Part-time.
part-time position. The other position is actually a position that already existed. Someone has left that position. The board changed the position to a slightly lower position to adjust the funding for the position, since it only required a high school diploma, and if it continued at that level, we were starting pay at $24.88 for a high school diploma. It seemed a little bit high, so we made an adjustment. We came up with the appropriate skills that they needed at the library to have that position cover, and they came up with kind of an in-between position that didn't exist before, but it really is the same position. It's just got a lower price tag to begin with.
Well, and there's also lower,
Yeah.
they can't plan programs, they can assist in programs. So that,
So,
Sort of different.
but they can do some of the other coverage that they couldn't do if we had gone with the just the.
no, both positions would do coverage.
Okay.
It was the programming that was
Okay.
different.
All right. So, yeah, so I would think that would be the main thing. Probably also another thing that we may wanna add back in is a legal line. I know last year we discussed that, and, we actually, took money out that had been designated for that, because, it was like, well, nobody else is doing that, and, that was kind of, Justin's discussion with us. But, now we're into a new season, and we have, been asking for different things to be reviewed, et cetera. And maybe it makes more sense to put money into that line so that we can, actually fund, the services that we use with the town. It's one of those funny, things that we're not a town department, we're a separate entity, but obviously the town taxes have to get raised, and the portion that goes to us needs to go to us. In some towns that have a smaller library, they actually, those funds actually go to the library, and the library holds those funds and does all of the paying of their staff. Maybe they only have part-time staff people, except for maybe one full-time person. But in a library such as ours, with so many different individuals and such a larger usage base, it makes more sense to have an agreement with the town that the town's going to fulfill that. So we do have an MOA with the town now that kind of helps to try and delineate what services is the town going to provide and what
What's an
ones.
MOA, sorry?
Memorandum of agreement.
Okay,
Like an
And-
MOU.
Yeah, it's like an MOU.
got it.
Sean liked the A versus the U, but I know there was some reason, there was some rationale as to what the A, what the A.
Yeah.
Hi.
Both parties have to, the town council
Yeah,
and
right.
the board of trustees have to agree.
Yeah.
It's not an understanding is just, this is how we're doing it. That'd be like me telling you, that's not how it works. Both parties
I knew
have
there
to
was a reason.
agree.
I just couldn't remember what the rationale for that was.
If I may ask, since you brought up the legal line item and then the MOA, does the MOA affect in any way this new legal line item that you just mentioned the library would have to bring back into the budget?
No, I don't expect so. I just think it gives us an opportunity to say, to look at what actually we need or what we've used, and then potentially be able to then, pay the town when we've used services.
Gotcha.
It's not something the town has asked us to do, but I think from a clarity standpoint, I think it makes more sense for us to be responsible for that, even just to begin with, because other departments aren't, but we're not really a department, so it's one of those,
Got it.
it's like, okay, are they a town employee or not a town employee today, that kind of thing.
So again, just one more question, and forgive me here, just for asking for clarity.
Mhm.
You would be using the town's legal counsel, not retaining your own for the library, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, got it, thank you.
I would say right now we're using, not the exact same lawyers that the town is using all the time. We are using, but it's ones related by the town and, recommended to us by the, town manager,
Got it.
as well as any free ones we can, connect with.
We like free, we're
Oh, free's
financial
good,
people.
yes.
Is any further questions from the board?
If no one else has any, I'd ask Jen one
Mhm.
more. So one that we also asked Aaron is, in the last year or maybe 2 or 3, just curious if you have any comments or perspective on any budget line items that were significantly under or overspent, especially for more than 1 year. And why did that happen? Is it the budgeting process itself? Was it unforeseen events, etc.? So just kind of looking to get an idea of, here's what was planned, here's what actually happened, why the difference?
I think one of the areas is definitely the books. The book collection is definitely an issue. Sometimes the amount that it's over has been substantial, and I think some of it is this shift to digital that we can't really see, and some of it is that maybe the collection or the prices have changed on the outside, so the collection development actually costs a percentage larger than was expected. So that's a possibility. Also, once we have cleared the COVID years, really there's been a different way that the public uses a lot of services, not just the library. But a lot of people have changed their patterns of what they do as families and things like that. So that also comes into the mix as well. But so that's an area that I know that if you look back a number of years, you'll see, sometimes the swing is quite large. And part of that, I say, there's reasons for that, but part of it also was because the word was that we weren't allowed to increase that line. Sorry, you have to live within that line, because we don't want to increase it because it'll look bad going forward into the budgeting process that we increase a line.
Wait a minute, you're still talking about the books line.
I'm still talking about the books line.
So
Go ahead.
Why would it look bad to increase it if people are using it more?
we did increase it. In FY '23, it was at 95,000. Then in FY '24, it was 100,000, and then last year it was 90,000. So we actually, last year, we moved 10,000 of it, I believe, to the line item to accommodate for the GMILK's increase. So we moved that saying, oh, okay, GMILK's books, we're getting the books from GMILK's, we'll move it to that area. So we did move money to that, the GMILK's line, which I believe I said management services, to accommodate for hopefully assisting with that increase.
And how much in '24 did we go over the book line?
Well, it's hard to say here because we move money to the trustee account, but we had $100,000 in '24, and I see we went over we were over 160%, so about $60,000. But I also would have to look back to see how that money, if that money came directly from that line, or was that money in addition to the money that was moved to the trustee line, the trustee account, the book account.
Book account.
This would be a trustee book account?
No, the book account is actually where the money from the town goes to pay for books.
Okay.
And it also is where the fines go, and where lost books go, to pay for additional books.
So you'll have to excuse me, I'm gonna ask yet another ignorant question. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounded like you just said, in response to Jen's question, that the 100K budgeted in FY '24, you went over, possibly in part due to transferring to a trustee's account. Why would there be a transfer to a trustee's account when a line item is already over budget?
I can't really speak to that.
So for when a budget, for our budget, we get, let's just say for that $100,000 a year, we get $100,000. We get 2 payments technically from the town a year. Usually one is in July and then another one in November. So that, essentially, that $100,000 moves into the trustee book account. So they have, let's just say, $100,000 right there. And when we buy books from our vendors or other materials that circulate at the library from our vendors, the trustees, we will give the trustees invoices, we will cut checks and then they sign the checks. That money comes out of that book line. So, yes, $100,000 went to the bank, the book account, but if we decided, say, oh, looks like we're gonna have some extra money based on not filling a position or whatever that looks like, we might then spend out of the town account knowing that we're a bottom line budget. So I would have to look at, in that year, because I don't remember, it was a couple of years ago, what that spending actually looked like.
Okay, well, thank you, that answered the procedural question that I had, I appreciate
Yes,
it.
so
It's a little bit different than how other things work. It's rare in my library career of 30-something years that the trustees have their own bank accounts. I've never had a library that had that. In fact, it's not very common from what I'm aware of, so it's a little bit different than other departments.
Got it.
So, but there has been concerns expressed, that, in an effort to say, well, we're not gonna increase the budget at all, we don't want any big changes in some of the budget lines, at least by past boards, budget committees. So, if that's the case, if you don't wanna say that there's increases in budget lines, then the line has to be correct to begin with. So it has to be responsive to begin with, so it shouldn't be about, oh, now you've got 20,000 more in this. Now, there may be a real good reason as to why we have 20,000, because of the way the programming's changed or because something else has changed. But it really should be right-sized, not artificially held low or artificially kept high so that, something happens or so that there's money available for this other thing. I do believe in 2024, that was right at the end of COVID, and there had been a lot of funds from the library at the end of the year that were transferred to the town, because the library hadn't spent money the same way and the town was spending money in a different way as well. So I believe that there was some money that was shifted back when it was obvious that there was still going to be money available. And that went into the town line, figuring that would be, to the book line, which figuring that would be someplace where that could clearly be spent for the town.
I feel like in just last year, we actually right-sized a fair amount from different departments, I believe. I think fire was one of them, possibly police.
I believe Justin was talking about at least getting them started to be right-sized.
Yeah.
So we'll probably see more this upcoming budget season, I'd assume.
Yeah, we're here to
Yeah.
help,
Right,
you
Yeah.
Right.
know, so, yeah.
and I think that clarity, it's easier for the community to actually know what's going on when they can look and say, oh, now I get it. Oh, that's where that money goes.
Sure.
Instead they look at the book line and just say, well, how can they spend that much money on books? Well, it's not just books. There's other things in there too.
If I may ask for clarification on one thing, Jen, I believe I just heard you say, a couple of sentences ago, that past boards have expressed a concern about line items growing. Did you mean by that during the year being exceeded unexpectedly, or year over year during the budget planning process?
That year over year, they weren't allowed, or it was, discouraged for them to increase the actual budget line to match what they anticipated was going to be the funding. So,
The direction's been for the town, up until the last couple of years, it's gotten a little bit better, but to have a budget under default.
mhm,
So all the departments have been really encouraged to come with budgets that are lean, that don't increase much anything over personnel.
That's fair.
and, and that's understandable. It's just that, it's an artificial lock. And with increase in actual folks coming into the library and volumes and things going out, that's kind of one of those pieces that has to be at least looked at. One of the questions that was made at one of the budget meetings last fall was, so if you could choose, what kinds of things would you choose to, change or add to the budget? And certainly looking at the types of materials and looking at the types of programs and the funding for those programs, making it really clear, so that, and also the staffing versus other sized libraries that are, that handle the same kind of volume. Are we understaffed, overstaffed, et cetera? Do we need additional hours because of what the community requires, or are we okay with hours, that kind of thing? Versus, we just have to have no change here, which, okay, we can do no change, but when we do no change, then at the, when we get toward the end of the year, or even in the middle of the year, when we get half the money. So maybe in the first half of the year, there's actually more collection that they expand. Well, now for 2 months, we're going to be over, we're going to be spending more than we actually have in the account. Well, sort of. We may be ordering more than we actually have in the account, knowing that in December we'll get the second half. So it goes up and down on the report because we've now been given half, and we're spending a little bit more than half before the second half comes. So it's kind of one of those weird things about the way we separate the library and the town funds.
Okay.
Alright, then I have, are you guys all set?
I'm good.
Alright, then there's 2 things from me. So one, first, the Gmail, because I know there've been these one-time costs that have been necessary with the Leach Library's integration into the consortium. Are we anticipating any more of those, of these one-time costs of projects that are needed so that the Leach Library is fully integrated with
Gmails?
Yes.
Like onboarding you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, we shouldn't. We have an annual membership, they call it, fee
Yeah.
that we pay. That's based off a formula with the other 12 libraries. It's based off of our collection size, our patron size, all sorts of kind of things that go into to create that number, so it's fair amongst every library. So the larger libraries, Manchester will have a larger membership fee than we would, and other smaller libraries. So I don't anticipate any kind of additional things happening with GMILPs. Certainly that things could come up that I am not aware of.
Okay.
But the onboarding is all set, we're all set there. And usually the membership fee does handle quite a bit of the services that they provide. We don't need to use our IT services here at the town for our catalog, our ILS system, which we did before. We have now Gmails to assist with that. So any upgrades, any changes to the catalog, Gmails takes care of that, and it's already paid for.
Okay.
So those are the kind of things that there's a lot of benefits being part of that consortium, and now we were able to free up IT from that project that they had to do. So hopefully no surprises.
Okay.
Quick question about GMOX. Do you or does the consortium track for you, for us, the usage by Londonderry patrons of G-Milks?
Of course.
Okay.
Yep. We can track, we actually have access to a lot more statistics than we did with our previous catalog. So we can tell you how many Londonderry patrons used other libraries in the consortium. We can tell you how many of Bedford's patrons came to our library to check out or have received materials through the delivery service from our library. So there's a lot of statistics we can throw at you that will probably bore you. They excite us, certainly.
I like numbers.
But we'll be sharing some of those statistics hopefully during this budget process. Just for because we joined G-Milks in October of last year. So we're coming up on almost a full year of being in the consortium, which is going to be really fantastic to see those numbers. And then even next year, we'll be able to compare first year and so forth. So we'll have a really good comparison of usage with our materials and with the consortium.
And that actually leads into the second question, or I should say point, actually more of a request for the budget presentations. I know every year you always give the number of patrons that come through that, and
The
so that we
visits.
can track year over year. I'd also like to see, I know like the amount of programs and the amount of
Sure.
individuals that attended programs. I'm not sure if you could go,
Yep.
you like 3 years back, so that we could see, because I know there's been an uptick and increase in programs and patrons attending those. I'd like to see the numbers of individuals that are going there, and then these additional numbers that you can receive from the out of Londonderry patrons that are coming here, that are can you track the interlibrary loans as
Yep.
well? So just all those.
I don't, I will certainly share those with the budget committee,
Yeah.
of course. It's going to, I don't know how the presentation, to my understanding, might be working a little bit differently this year. So I will, if I can't share them at that presentation, I'll certainly share them with the board.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's just in the handouts that we receive,
Sure,
so that we can
absolutely.
take a look and review it. We see the numbers, we see how different lines change, and I'm excited that there's going to be more. The lines will be more detailed. They'll be specific for what they're for. We often ask ourselves in our meetings is, why is this number going up? Why has it gone down? And to see the numbers of, well, these are the whys. This X amount of programs have been added. X amount of, we have X amount of new patrons, and that's why these
Certainly,
numbers
yeah.
are. So
It would help
that
clarify
would be
that, absolutely.
that'd be beneficial for the
So
board.
3 years back, you said?
I think 3 years back is sufficient. I don't.
The
see-
numbers for the loan might be a little challenging because we
Right.
weren't in G-Milks.
Correct.
So I
we
can.
get the first.
We
year.
can get, yeah, I can get you, obviously, I can get you, but it might look a little different because we didn't have access to as much data
Correct.
with the old system, but I'll certainly try to get as much as I can for you, related to that,
And with
for previous years.
And with programs, we've asked for additional information, the board has asked for additional information, breaking it down by, age groups and things like that. Again, so we know, what the trending is.
Yeah.
Are we increasing programs in a particular area? So we can see how the money is tracking too. So, and they've got all these statistics, that they gather on the programs already. So, it's just a matter of getting them to the right people.
Is there anything else that you guys would like to see in either the handouts, the presentation that we normally wouldn't have received from the library in years past? Anything additional?
Great progress,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
all of you.
It's definitely good to see. It's good to be able. It'll be, beneficial for us to be able to understand these numbers when we receive them, and hopefully cut down on the amount of emails and questions asked.
Well, yeah, and I think to Jan's point, when we had talked about in board meetings, kind of clarifying some of those line items, and I think it would give even the average person a better understanding of how the budget works, because, I make sense to me, but I've been in the business, so
Right.
certainly to clarify, that would be helpful.
Well, especially since, I wouldn't think of management services as being related to programs. It doesn't, to me, I'm expecting them to be contracts, all contracts for something else.
Right.
But, that was the closest match for the name that was already there. So they're repurposing the name because that's what some other town departments were using this name. So let's
Right.
keep using those names and not use some other different names that are approved, but we just don't use them in town. Well,
Can I ask a perhaps naive question? Was there at some point maybe a conversation with the town to say, hey, we need another general ledger line item category?
there has been in the past, and we were told we couldn't make changes. We have been told relatively recently
Not during my term.
that we had a plan for the addition.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna be, to my understanding, the board will be working with Justin to kind of rename, hopefully, some of those line items to clarify them. We talked about it with him last year, but it was too late. We were already in the budget process, so the discussion was going to carry to this year.
Okay.
Cool.
You know, and sometimes it may mean, changing the name, sometimes it may mean giving us subdivisions in that category, or creating a different category like for G-Milks, taking it out of the bits and pieces that are here and there to pay for it.
Awesome.
All right. So that's all that I had. Are you all set?
Yes.
All right. Well, Aaron, Jan, thank you so much for
Thank you.
giving your time, for coming here tonight. This will definitely be beneficial for us heading into budget season. And
Well, thanks for the
yeah,
opportunity.
thank you guys.
Yeah, certainly if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out and I'll try to help you or, yep.
Me too.
All right. So now, moving on to our next item, the discussion and overview of the updated code of ethics. So these were distributed. They were distributed to me earlier this month. I'm sorry I was late getting these out to you guys. I'm not sure if you had seen them before through other sources, but I'm assuming not. So I'd actually like Sean. Would you like to? Do you mind coming up and?
Absolutely.
If I may just real quickly, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Did I miss these coming out in an email? I didn't.
Yeah, this
So
afternoon.
it was this. Yeah, it was
This
this.
afternoon.
Like I said, it was late that these came out, and I apologize for that.
Did you send
Or
them
this-
to the toll board's email accounts? Because I
Yeah.
didn't receive anything from you today.
So if you didn't receive anything from toll boards, then talk to Kirsten. Let her know that you're not getting
Okay.
emails. Have you been getting other emails from toll boards? Or
I mean, if you, like, for example, when I've been speaking with the trustees and the library
well,
director.
why don't you and I would take a look at your inbox, make sure you're getting everything. If not, Kirsten can give you a hand and
Yeah.
fix that issue.
You just wanna give you an overview?
Sure, if you can give us an overview, Sean.
So, the existing policy was created in 2008, updated in 2014. Let me just say that there are things that must change, there are some things that don't comply with law, existing law, and there are some things that are conflicting, and there are a lot of missing things, like electioneering and lobbying for municipal employees has to be covered in there. The process by which someone recuses themselves needs to be clarified. So those are just some of the things, but there are some things that are in the existing policy that are just plain illegal, that have to be removed. This policy is intended to do that. And this is sort of a best practices compilation from other communities across the country, as well as New Hampshire. We had a really good community engagement session on Tuesday night, and there was a lot of changes, and they were really good feedback about changes we're gonna make in there. For instance, that recusal process, it's very wordy. We're actually gonna box it out, put it in charts, and have a flow chart, so it's easy for people to identify. There's actually a provision there, even when you don't have public comment, that someone could raise their hand and say, I think a member of the body has a conflict of interest, and they need to recuse themselves, and you need to allow them to do that, even if you don't allow for public comment. And we're gonna put that on the agenda, that was brought, it goes on the actual agenda, so the citizens know that as well.
So just the recusal part, people can shout out.
Well, they would raise their hands.
Yeah,
and
sorry.
the chair needs to recognize them, even if you don't allow public comment or it's not appropriate at that particular time, you do need to allow for that to occur. just for that narrow purpose to say, I believe this member has a conflict of interest on this issue, and I would ask that they would recuse themselves, here are the reasons why, and then there's a more articulated process in which that goes through.
So it's like a specific, point of order dealing with something.
That's a good way to articulate it, right? It would be a point of order, but point of orders are for people
Right.
that are on the body. In this case, it's the general public. Anybody in that public out there can make that request. And then there's a whole process that you would go through as a body to work through that. And that's outlined in it, and I could certainly go into that with you. This is an elongated process for very good reasons. We don't have to rush this. We had our first community engagement session. It's been out to all the staff departments and the unions, waiting for feedback from them. Every board and committee is being asked to provide comment or express concerns about what should be changed. And I'm getting some of that from folks, which is really helpful. I suspect because of all the feedback we got on Tuesday night, there's gonna be a revision. We'll go back out again. We'll get more public feedback. We'll send it back to boards and committees and staff again. And then hopefully we'll have it synthesized to where we want it to be. It'll go back to the council. They'll have a first reading, and then they'll have a public hearing on that, so that we have a finalized version. We're really gonna beat the heck out of this to get it to where we really want it to be, because we have the time to do it. This is really important. Right now, it's actually a policy. It should be part of our municipal code, so it has the force of law. Even though it says administrative policy on it, that's one of the things that'll be changing. I did that because that's what you have now, the administrative policy. It should be a code though, so that will be put into there. It doesn't apply to the library because they do have a separate governing body. They are part of the town. The only difference is they have a separate governing body. It doesn't apply to the school district either. So I guess that's kind of a broad brush overview, and we really are looking for feedback. We get some really good feedback, like I said, on Tuesday night from members of the public, so, as you work through it.
And along those lines, when there are items that it would make sense for the library to clarify, that, because we have a process that may be also confusing or also not clearly going along with what the state law is, that it would be good for us to make that clear. And I think you mentioned about making diagrams and things like that. I think that we oftentimes do a lot of work with making lots of words on pages. And the reality is that a lot of people don't take that in very well. That they need another format in addition to that, so we should be mindful of that as well.
Yeah, visual learners, males tend to be visual learners on average, whereas women tend to listen better. You know, they
I didn't hear that.
their retention skills are better, but men tend to be more visual learners. So having a chart is easier for, you know, it's not 100% that way, obviously, but it's another way to be able to communicate the messaging in a better way to people. So we're gonna implement that in there. There was good feedback we got the other night. So we'll have the verbiage, but we'll have a chart, and then we'll probably have an attached flow chart in the back, so there'll be multiple ways in which we can communicate the message to folks.
And whenever we can do that, that's a benefit to everybody. So, the other thing is, one of the things we didn't talk about, and maybe Aaron did, was now that the library meeting room has video, we've now been connected so that we're recording directly. There may be some expenses that we may have to talk with the cable folks about. Like there's been some issues with microphones, people not being able to hear just right, because the camera is at one end and we're sitting at the opposite end, and things like that. And we can't change the room orientation because of where the camera is. We can't move the table so that we have better access to exits, etc. So there may be some funding related specifically to that, but it may be able to be covered through the cable folks. I just don't know. That's how we've got the equipment. But so at least that can happen, and that also can be available for other committees if that's needed, if the room's available and we can get a trained person to turn it on.
So I would say, unless you guys have initial questions or comments now, take some time with this. If you have anything that you'd like me to relay to Sean, just shoot me an email, or if you just wanna, should they be emailing Kirsten, should they be emailing,
I'm taking the feedback.
Okay.
There's multiple ways you can do this.
Yeah.
Some committees want me to come and talk, some people that they're sending their members to the general community, general public engagement sessions. And this is gonna go on for a while, so we encourage people to take your time, look it over, provide the feedback to us. I'm making emails from other board members, which is
Yeah.
great. And, we're gonna put it all together and, there'll be a whole list of changes, I suspect, that the council will look at. And if they make those again, they'll go back out again.
Yeah, so just let this simmer and marinate, and I just comments, questions, send them to Sean. Just CC myself on those. So, so that's it for the code of ethics.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Now we're on to, unless there's any further discussion on that, we move on?
Yep.
Alright, so liaison reports, I don't have liaison reports for this month, so we'll just go, down the line, so Patrick, for, council.
So I'm the secondary for council. I provided both the council as well as my report for library to you digitally today. Because it's been 2 months since our last meeting, they were substantial, there were a lot of items. So I would, I won't take everyone's time and go through them all. A few highlights that I think make sense to just mention here are some of the recent library trustee board meetings have of course talked about budgeting for compensation increases. There's been discussion about the cost and definition of benefits for the part-time positions we already spoke about. There's a personnel policy review in progress, including wages, salary schedules, performance pay, admin time for exempt employees, etc. And some of the expenses that were either budgeted or approved were the fall program budget, $6,500. Last year was $6,400. The GMELC's one-year approval was for $46,000 and change. And actually, there was a mention in one of the trustee meetings that we would have a discussion during the budget process about pulling that out to a distinct budget line item. The memorandum of agreement reached with the town was discussed, and also there are going to be there are some proposed bylaw changes about budget preparation. So that's the library trustees. There were quite a few budget items or fiscal items in the town council meeting since our last meeting. I'll just highlight 2 or 3. I think financially probably the most significant one is that this Monday, August 18th, the town council received the presentation about water line extensions needed to eventually bring line water to every home in town because of the PFOA issue, which has affected many of our wells. And so 2 studies were used to estimate that this would cost Londonderry between $200 and $300 million. The costs actually were just over 200 and 250 something. And obviously this would be a project that would take decades, probably not feasible for just Londonderry to pay for by ourselves. So as and when that project kicks off, state, federal, and other funding sources should of course be considered. Key though is that in order to stagger this out over time, the committee presented a set of, I think, 7 priorities which they will use to judge which waterline extensions to do first. And as you might imagine, it's who's impacted most, where's the most pollution, and so on. Another one is that there was actually an item submitted to the town council to study the budget committee's role, whether to change it from its current advisory nature to an authoritative nature through the adoption of RSA 32, 14 through 24 in there govern that. And so the town manager was directed by the town council to study the effects and impacts of potentially adopting that and to report back by the October 6th town council meeting. There were a number of other items, of course, but those are, I think, the 2 top ones that jumped out priority-wise, and everything else is just in my written report, which presumably will be propagated and made available.
Yes. Alright, Sarah?
So thorough. For CIP, we've had 3 meetings so far. So the first one was for the rec department. He talked about tennis courts, a basketball court, and I believe that was it. And the second one was for schools. That was just talking about the athletic field. Two athletic fields actually. And then the third one we had was just recently, that was with the DPW expansion. So we just discussed all of those and prioritized them, and it went really well. And then I'll just go to DPW. I got nothing because Dave Wally is on vacation.
All
Good for
right.
him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Alright, and then Ryan?
So I didn't get a financial update from the fire department, but they did let me know they're down to just one vacant position that they're
Okay.
doing interviews for this week. And both Fred and Phil will be here next month for our September meeting.
Awesome.
Nothing for planning board.
Alright then. So that concludes our liaison reports. So public comment? First, can I have a motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in
She
favor?
beat me to it. Aye.
Chair votes
Aye.
in the affirmative. A lot of people from the public. Oh,
Sure.
well, you can just come right up.
Make sure you have this.
Name and
Richard Polsky, 89 Hall Road. I would hope as part of the budget process this year, people start looking at these line items and looking at what's put into the middle line items. Because I've been watching what's been going over at the library. Their book account for the fiscal year that ended in June was at 98% of appropriation in December. I brought that up at a trustee meeting. I'd have to go and talk to Justin what it ended up at. But one of the excuses I was given, well, we haven't got our second infusion. They get it basically when the tax bills are out. They had already got the second check, and they were at 98%. So I looked at, recently, in the last couple of weeks, I looked at some of the expenses for the library. And I found thousands of dollars of what I would call book expenses from Baker and Taylor that were put under general supplies. A lot of book covers, some invoices say books, some that I have to talk to Justin why they're in there, because they say books with a comma, insurance. I know there was a flood that paid, and some of those got paid by insurance, so I don't know why they would be in the regular budget if they were paid by insurance. I have to get an explanation on that. So you really need to look at where this stuff has been put and what line items, and not just the line items.
Okay.
Some of the items are different departments, instead of running into the negative, say it's 100,000, and they spend 160, it's being moved into other line items. Sean and I have spoke about that. It kind of should show up as a negative in that line, you're negative in that line. Right, then it's real easy to pick out what is over and what is under. Right. I'm not happy with what I'm seeing. I need some explanations, and, you know, we can make it, yes, it's a bottom line budget, but the bottom line budget doesn't mean you do whatever you want. It's not a catch-all. It means you shouldn't be spending more than whatever is appropriate for that department. You still should be sending it to the line items that are appropriate for what it is. Some you don't have appropriate line items. Some, like their programs, I don't have the exact numbers, but they're spending more than was appropriated for them. If you know you get 30,000, why are you spending 40 or 45,000? Build that into your budget next year, or do what you need to do. That's what you do at home. You don't just keep spending. So I have the whole thing at home. You really need to start looking where it's going, that it's being put under the appropriate line items. I'm sorry, but book covers, my luck, I don't have a problem with getting them, protect the books. In lines that actually say books, shouldn't be under general supplies. They just shouldn't. It doesn't make sense to me. And then you look in the book line, and if I remember right, there was a couple for like video game equipment and video games. That's not a book to me. All right? And that's off the town's paperwork, so you need to look at that.
All right, thank you, Richard. And of course, if there's anything specifically that you want us to take a look at during budget season, just
I'll
email.
give it to you.
Yeah, email the board, the toll board, so that we can all see it and review it.
Oh, wait, I think Thomas was up.
All right, we have 5 minutes, name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Thomas Ryan, 2 Snowberry Hollow. I would just like to comment that the video games are under the Library of Things, so they are things that can be physically taken out of the library. And currently, due to the way that books is structured under the budget, it really should be counted against them for being in books, because it would have to be separated under its own line item if they separated into like electronics, sort of like they were suggesting, but currently that's not possible.
Excuse me, Thomas, one clarification for the minutes. Did you say, was your comment that these video games should or should not be tracked under another line item?
They should be, if an item for electronics is created, it should be tracked under that.
Got it, okay.
Similar to like the ebook readers that you have.
Got it.
All right,
Thank
thank you.
Megan Donovan, 45 Chase Road. Just a couple of clarifications for those book lines. The book line is actually for circulating items, it's not for just books. So if that's what Thomas was explaining, that it is appropriate as it stands, because they circulate, they would then be in the book line, but if you break it out as considered, that would be something. The general supply line is used for library specific materials. So book covering, processing materials, labels, label savers, things like that. Book repair glue, book tape, things like that. So library specific, book pockets, anything that we would put on a book to help it circulate and process. So that's what that line is used for.
Okay.
The Baker and Taylor invoices that are going towards that line are for the processing that they do at Baker and Taylor to save staff time for a better workflow. So Baker and Taylor will barcode, put spine labels, and cover books. That is something that is billed separately, and that is why it's billed into the general line, because that is part of the processing, which is what happens in that line. So that may be something that you can consider renaming from general supplies, but they are library supplies specific for that kind of material, and that's why those Baker and Taylor book processing, it's something that hadn't previously been through. That's something we started within the last couple of years, having them do that, and it saves significant staff time, and then we don't have to buy those as much of the items directly, which is why you would maybe see a change in the general supply line, because we're getting the processing done, but we don't have to have as much of the physical materials on hand. We still need some, because we do process like some other items for that come in differently, like cases break and things like that as well. So any type of case that we would use all comes out of that general supply line.
All right, thank you. Yes.
Jan McLaughlin, 38 Rainbow Drive. Just in response to that, again, it may be that the refinement of that, so some of those book items that are used to help them circulate, maybe they would be, supplies related to books would be moved under the book items, so that would increase that, instead of taking them out of the general supply and putting them in a more specific, again, so we can get a better feel as to how much it's really costing for this versus just the books, or this is, so we can actually see, oh, here's the electronic things, here's the library of things, so we can see where those pieces are, would be really helpful, for me as a taxpayer, but also for me as a board member, so.
That is something that I think we also were looking forward to, just the specificity within the line items so that we can easily track and see what's going where. So thank you, Jan. Anyone else for public comments?
I just have a few things, but that's, normally public comment.
I guess now's the time.
Okay. So just a couple of things I wanted to bring you, somewhat logistical things. You're gonna have staff support at every meeting from now on. It's either gonna be me or someone from the finance department, because usually budget committees have some sort of staff support to help you do the work you gotta do. That's one. Two, I don't know what has been done in the past, but you're gonna get the quarterly budget reports at the same time the council does.
Okay.
So ideally, I'd like to change that in the future, where you actually get them first. That way you can meet, review them, and then when it comes out to a council meeting, somebody, if they wish to, from here can make So we've reviewed this and here's our feedback on that. That's, I call that a healthy process to do that. I don't think you do anything like that now. So that, I think, would help you do your work. Obviously, our charter has like a couple of sentences about the budget committee, but there's no real detail like most of the other committees in a town or city that outlines the tasks and things and charge and those responsibilities. No matter what happens with the report I'm going to provide to the council, which you're obviously going to get as well as soon as I finish it. There's a whole lot of things that I'm not prohibited from doing. I can certainly share reports to you, so I'm going to do those things now. You're going to get that logistical support now. My view of your budget process, it seems to be rather truncated, and you're not provided a whole lot of information in the time frame in which you would need to be able to help you do your work. I'm trying to work on some of that this year, but I'm already behind the 8 ball. I started in June. We should have started back in April, the budget process for FY27. And that would have given you more time to get the budget packet, be able to read it. So when you would show up on November 1st, that you'd be able to ask intelligent questions. Right now, it looks like I might be able to get it to you 7 days in advance, but that's not enough. You all have jobs and everything else. How do you read that many pages and absorb and digest that much information in that very short period of time? I have the same problem with councils. They don't have time to do it either. So we've got to totally change how this process works. And what Aaron alluded to at the department head meeting, I said, my expectation is we're going to have presentations from every department, and they're going to have PowerPoints to help carry that point, because again, some people are visual, and that's a helpful way for them to understand and digest the material we're providing to them. So they're all going to be expected to do that, not just the large departments. So the smaller departments kind of get forgotten about. The other thing that's different is the department heads have been directed to provide me with a budget that they feel is necessary to meet the needs of the department, not to provide a default budget, but to provide that to me. And I told them, I said, everybody knows the budget situation. The departments will probably ask for something here, and I'll have to cut it down to here, but at least you will know, the town council will know, and the community will know what the departments believe that they need, not the wish list, or what they need to be able to do. You haven't seen that. Basically, my understanding is that departments really didn't create budgets because it was just finance gave the default budget, and that's what it's going to be. That doesn't serve you well, and it doesn't serve the council well. So that's how I plan to do that. I expect I'm going to get some guidance from the town council. And here, it doesn't look like you provide any guidance initially in the budget process, from what I've been able
Not
to see.
until the start of November, when we're starting to ask questions and give our counsel.
So when I worked in a town, the budget committee had a much more active role,
Yeah.
and they did a lot more things, and they were more integrated in the process. And then the budget product that was produced was a product of something that, they provided feedback on how they would like to see it, to be able to do that. And we had some discussions about the electronic, being able to get files that you can manipulate. Manipulate's not the best term, but take them and model them the way you want to model them.
Yes.
And so that's going to be a helpful process. This software program we had doesn't really do that, but the one that I would like to get and that I'm going to eventually get will allow me to do that. So that's why it's even more important that you get the information earlier, so you can get that and run your own computer models through AI, different ways, to come up with different scenarios that you think are viable. So that will help you do your work. I need a platform by which to be able to do that. And I need to also give you enough time to be able to do that, and then be able to answer questions for you in between that process. And I also, even if you don't want to do it, you can ask me to run those scenarios for you. And I don't think you've been given that kind of permission to be able to ask for things in a certain way, like a function code budget. Have you ever heard of do you know what that is? I'm not trying to be flippant. Do you know what a function code budget is? And it really might help you out for this. And so if you want to find out the fuel lines across the entire town, I could produce that report. We spend this much money. These are all the fuel lines, all the various departments. This is the electricity lines. This is what we would refer to as outside purchase services, the contracted services throughout the entire municipality. So you can see that's the total amount in there. That way you can start to do some modeling and thought processes of maybe we do this differently. And it also helps us internally to also look at it differently. You don't have those tools available to you right now, most budget committees would have that. So no matter what happens with how we choose to go with the budget committee, there's a whole lot of room in between that we can make up, and I can help you to do your work, and I'm gonna be doing that. Unless, of course, you didn't want that, then I wouldn't, but nothing prohibits me from being able to provide that to you in our present charter or code that's in there. So that's what I'm going to do as soon as I can do that. Again, I'm already behind the 8 ball, because normally by now you would already have budget information to look at for the next year, and I don't have it for you, unfortunately. So I wanted to give you that broad brush. So some people are going to see when that budget comes out, the promise it's going to be this budget. That's not what I'm going to present, because we can't afford all of that, right? But I want to make that very clear, and I'll say it multiple times, that people should not take that and run and get out of control with it, right? And of course, this is all going to be transparent on the website for people to be able to see and look at the various iterations and versions of the budget as we go through the change process in the schedule. So those are the things that I wanted to sort of chat with you about and just tell you as we're moving forward. And again, either I'm going to be here or someone from finance is going to be here, so that you can make your request and we can have these discussions and answer questions for you like the normal budget committee would have in any other community. So that's kind of the broad brush I want to talk to you about.
So I have a question, and thank you for all the comments and the context. When it comes to being able to provide digital information to this board or other boards or committees to allow us to do further analysis, I don't know anything about the financial platform the town currently uses. Is it accurate, though, to infer from your remarks that it is relatively difficult or impossible with the current platform to emit tabular files of financial data that we could use?
So I don't know the answer to that, because I haven't gotten that far in the process
Okay.
yet. I'm going to be looking at it because I want to be able to do that. I'm used to being able to do that and run my own models.
I think
Start
it
making
spits out
decisions.
PDFs and crystal reports, if I am correct.
Yeah, I've been provided some of those by the finance department, but because of their hierarchical and very graphical nature, it's impossible to do
Correct.
anything with them easily.
Yes.
It's not a great system. In fact, they're not even selling it anymore, and they're providing some degree of support, but it's just a matter of time, and they've told us they're not going to be supporting it. So we're going to have to move. And not only that, I'm concerned about security patches not being able to come in, and we've got a lot of data in there. But it's not a versatile program that allows what a finance and a municipal organization would need in this day and age, especially with the complexity of our budget. OpenGov is what I'm looking to go to. It's very versatile, and it will tie into the other systems. They'll be all integrated with our other systems in there. I should be able to tell you what the next 5 years are going to be for road work, and if I do this, it'll reduce the cost by this much in that year. You don't have any of those tools to be able to make long-term decisions, and neither do I, and neither does the council. That's what modern, towns and cities have to be able to do that, so you can plan long-term. We've been around since 1722. We're not going anywhere. We're in the long game, right? So we need to be thinking long-term, and our budgets. There's no such thing as a one-year budget. Statutorily, obviously, there is, right? But you should be planning 5 years out, and what that looks like, the impacts I make today. How is that going to impact the budget 5 years from now, that growth in there in terms of salaries and those sorts of things? I don't have any of those tools here, and that's a significant shortfall. Like CSX files, it was probably the most minimum basic type of file that you can sort of manipulate. But I'm not even sure if it's capable of doing that. I haven't seen one exported that you could take something and actually do some work with.
Don't take this to the bank or anything, but I happen to know that in Londonderry, including perhaps one or two people in this room, you do have a fair amount of Doge-style hacker talent. I'll just leave that there.
Yeah, we had that, that occurred on Tuesday night. We had a phishing scam with the ZBA. Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so cyber attacks are on a regular basis, obviously that's.
No, I mean the good guys.
I know you do.
Yeah,
I know you
the
do.
good hackers.
We have also those on the dark side too, are trying to take advantage of people. I just wanted to talk to you
No,
about that.
that's perfect. I
doesn't
know
come
we
without the
talked a little bit about that the other week, and I'm looking forward to seeing this process more refined, and also just so that we have the tools. And we've asked at our first meeting for the year, one of the things that we discussed is trying to get digital copies that we can manipulate of the data, of the numbers, so that we could, either make projections or dive deeper, or well, if I made X changes here, this is what the overall budget would look like. I know that's something that we do want, so it's refreshing and it's good to hear that we're moving towards that side, especially for this upcoming budget season. And I know, again, the budget 7 days out. for me, and I guess for you guys, that's huge versus what
Yeah,
we're
how do you
normally
read that
doing.
many
It.
pages though and stuff to digest it, and then ask us questions in between so we can help you with it? Still not enough. 30 days would be the ideal situation, and
Yeah.
that's what I foresee for the FY '28 budget. Again, we're in the long game.
Right.
So the way that I envision this is that the chair and the vice chair of the town council, the chair and the vice chair of the budget committee, and the chair and the vice chair of the school board should get together to work out the rough parts of that, and then come back to the full committees and say, look, this is the reformed process that we're proposing. What does everybody think about that? But we need to make this change, I would suggest, because this just does, to me, in my mind, I feel bad for you folks, and I don't know how you operate in this environment, because it's not really effective. I mean, your job is supposed to be advising the legislative body, in this case, the town meeting, the thousands of people, because they don't have the time to do that. But if I don't give you those tools, how are you gonna effectively do that? I mean, it's, anyway.
Anything from you guys for Sean?
Amen to that.
Ditto.
It's so true.
All right. Well, thank you, Sean.
All right.
I look
you
forward
very
to seeing
much.
these changes.
Yes.
Good night.
All right. Is there any other public comment? No. All right. Can I get a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes in the affirmative. So that's it for tonight. Next meeting, September 18th, 7 p.m. here. We'll have the chiefs from police and fire here, so we can ask them their questions. Following meeting in October, we'll have, I'll be inviting Justin and Amity to come in, so we can get some of an overview before heading into budget season. So, so can I have a motion to, actually before I adjourn, anything else? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn
So moved.
tonight's meeting at
Second.
8:31? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, chair votes in the affirmative.